Hey, welcome to the Summit Host Hangout podcast, where you'll learn how to host a high converting virtual summit that leads to your biggest signature offer launch yet. I'm your host, Krista from Summit in a Box, and I'm really excited for today's episode because I think it's going to put the potential of virtual summits into a whole new light for you. And like we all know, there's the list growth, the immediate revenue, the momentum, all of these great things. But you're going to see how summits can really break you into brand new niches and be a big part of making your brand a sellable product. So we get to bring back Dr. Destini Copp. She's been on the podcast before. She is a certified business growth coach for digital product entrepreneurs. She helps businesses go beyond sales funnels to 10x their digital product revenue with growth flywheels that free up their time and scale your business. And she is amazing. She doesn't just teach it, she also lives it. One of her most successful brands is Hobby School, and it actually began with a domain name she bought on a Florida vacation, which, we need to hear the story. But it started with paid bundles and then evolved into large-scale virtual summits, and now it's moved into a platform of creative events and resources and so much good stuff. And she is currently documenting the 1 million Hobby School experiment on Substack, where she's sharing behind the scenes of all of this and the strategies she uses as she grows, when she has the goal of selling it for over $1 million within the next 2 years, which is so fun. So we'll dig into that as well. She's also the founder of her personal brand at DestiniCopp.com, where she leads the Newsletter Profit Club and the Creators MBA Lab. And across these brands, she's built an audience of 50,000 plus email subscribers. She's helped more than 12,000 creators build profitable online businesses. And man, I'm going to have to rein myself in today from asking way too many questions because there's so much goodness to dive into. But welcome back to the podcast, Destini. It's been 5 years, by the way, and I'm just very excited to be chatting on here again.
Has it really been 5 years? If you had asked me, I would have said 2 years at most.
I think I've been on your podcast twice since then, but it's been 5 years, I think, since you were on Summit Host Hangout, which is wild.
Oh my gosh, just flies. That's all I got to say.
It does. And I love that we get to talk about such a different topic this time. And I am just dying of curiosity, and I want to hear about this Florida vacation moment. Yeah. You said you bought that domain on a whim on that vacation. Tell us about that. What made you make that decision?
Yeah, so I remember this distinctly. I remember exactly the house that we had rented. We were at Watercolor. We go down there a lot. And I was sitting at the kitchen table. Everybody was still sleeping. I was up. I'm kind of an early riser. I had my coffee. And I was just, how you are on vacation. Well, let me see what else I can do and add to my plate. And that's kind of what I was doing. And this was all before AI. It was before, any of that. So I was on a domain name generator. So back then there was these, websites that you could go to, and you could type in some keywords and it would come back with some, really cool names for what you were wanting to do, whether it was launching a product or a website or whatever. And one of the names that came back was Hobby School without the H. So hobby and then SCOOL. And I'm like, that is such a cool name. I really think I could do something with this, with all the free time I had, right? So I bought it and I kind of sat on it for a little bit. I didn't do anything with it. I was in my mind trying to figure out, okay, what business model would make sense here? And, as you know, in my personal brand, I help digital product entrepreneurs. And I'm like, well, maybe I could set up a website where they could, have their courses there and I could sell them. And, I kind of played around with a bunch of different things. And then I had looked at some business models where people were basically launching businesses or offers, if you would, that were these paid bundles. And I'm like, okay, that might work for Hobby School. That might be the business model that I could do here. I could grow my email list, grow my audience, and sell these offers at the same time, these paid bundles. And if anybody's not familiar with this model, basically what you do, you go out and find contributors where they donate a premium product for this bundle. And you sell this bundle. Maybe it's a bundle that has $3,000 worth of offers in it, and you sell it for, $99 or whatever the case. And I'm like, okay, I've seen people do this. It seems like they've been successful with this business model. I said, let me try this and see if it works. And I tried it twice. So I feel like I gave it a good shot. And we definitely made some sales, but it really wasn't growing my email list and my audience the way that I had hoped it would. And I'm like, okay, that's not really, a long-term strategy, or it wasn't working for me. And I was familiar with virtual summits, right? I had gone through your Summit in a Box program. I had done a few of them in my personal brand, and I knew the model. I knew it worked. And I'm like, okay, let me test this in this particular niche, this hobby type niche. I decided to start with the kind of home garden type niche. So the hobby, go out in your backyard, do a home garden or grow herbs or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like it might be an offer or a niche that people were interested in. So I went out, found the speakers, brought them together for this particular event. We had, we followed the process that you teach where we have the VIP pass, had other products in that particular funnel with the order bumps and the upsells. And it was a hit. Like, I felt like it really moved the needle with my email list. We got a good amount of sales. I don't remember all the numbers, but we got a good amount of sales with the VIP pass and the offers through there. I'm like, okay, I'm on to something. I think this might work and I might be able to turn this into something. And over time, we tested out like different niches and different like topics to really find out what would resonate with people. So we didn't hit it out of the ballpark, every single time with what we were doing. And we don't do the home garden one anymore. That's just not the kind of the niche or the area that we decided to focus in for Hobby School. But I do feel like we have a very strong kind of portfolio of summits and kind of niches that we're focused in on. But it's just been a really good business model for us.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I love hearing this journey. How would you describe, I guess, what Hobby School is right now?
That's a good question, because I do feel like as we are all, as I'm going through this journey, I'm still like reinventing and looking at different ways to kind of diversify our income. So what we're doing kind of going into 2026, we have outlined a full plan, basically an event every single month, and just kind of different angles, different niches, like different things we're going to be doing. Honestly, probably all of them won't, hit it out of the ballpark, but I feel like I have a pretty solid plan there. So I have like that model, if you would. So, the income that we can get from that. I'm going to be exploring more like sponsorships now that I feel like I have like a good, monthly kind of event model. The other thing that I'm going to be testing, and I just, this kind of goes into my plan of where I want to take Hobby School and kind of my future vision, if you would. I want to look at diversifying the income there. So another thing that we're doing is exploring different verticals, different kind of niches to go into and kind of target. And one of them is the corporate wellness industry. So, and just to kind of explain this a little bit more, there are corporations out there that are looking for wellness type initiatives for their employees. So my thought process there is they can get access to every single month. We're running this event. They can offer that up to their employees, and they can, my thought process is we're going to offer them an annual pass. So they can buy a seat for one of their employees, and they can have access to all of the workshops that we're doing every single month. So that's another niche, kind of a vertical that we're going to explore. I've actually kind of been working on all of that and that sales process related to that. So that's one. The other kind of areas that we're looking into are like assisted living type places, bringing these type of workshops into them. We know that market, that target market really loves these type of workshops. they have the time for it. And they're wanting to like explore ways to keep their brains sharp and to keep them young and to keep them healthy. And it's a really good way for them to do it. So there's different verticals that we're looking at like that, just to kind of diversify the revenue there.
Oh my gosh. So you went from like homesteading all the way to like retirement homes. Like that's quite the range. And okay, I'm going to be leading you with this question. We're going somewhere. Can you give us just like a list of a handful of niches that come to your mind first that you've hosted summits for through Hobby School?
Yeah, so a couple of the big ones that we have done that have, definitely have been a hit for our audience is our Art of Expression Summit. So that kind of goes into like the painting and the journaling and the drawing and the sketching. That has just always been a huge hit for us. I think we've done that event 3 years in a row now. The other one is our Art of Handmade Summit. Again, been a huge hit for us. So think like knitting, sewing, quilting, soap making, jewelry making, all those type of kind of hobbies, if you would. Another one, and we're doing this one in November. We've done this one again for the past, I think, 3 years, is our Elves Workshop Summit. So all about like holiday stuff. So card making for the holidays, gift making for the holidays, wrapping, just all kinds of holiday type stuff, like handmade holiday, anything that people would want to do to kind of brighten their holidays is in that particular event. So those are just jumping out to me, just to kind of give you an idea of some of the ones that we are, looking at.
I love that compared to the other two you just mentioned that you're like looking to build out more. But here's where I'm going next with this. Out of all those things you just listed, how many of those topics or niches would you say you are an expert in?
Well, absolutely none of them, because I don't I don't really, first of all, I don't do any of this. I've never sewn, I've never quilted, I've never painted, I've never drawn, I've never sketched. I just don't do that type of stuff. Primarily because I just don't have the time. It's not that I wouldn't enjoy it if I had the time, but yeah, I don't do any of it.
I love it. And the reason I ask is because so many people are worried about hosting a summit because they feel like they aren't a big enough deal in the space yet, right? Like I've only been doing it for a little bit. I don't know that many people. I'm not the top expert. But here you are regularly hosting monthly amazing summits in all kinds of different niches where you don't even do the hobby, let alone run a business about it. So like, I guess, what would you say to people who are worried about that? Or like, well, first of all, okay, my first question, do you position yourself? Are you visible throughout the summit? Or is it kind of just a no-name summit?
No, people definitely know who I am. So the emails are coming from me. So definitely they know who I am. Any email that comes out pretty much, unless it's like coming from my VA to like the speakers or the affiliates, but to the audience, the emails are coming from me. In like the community groups that we have, I'm the one that's like kicking it off for the event. So I'll go live in the community, where we've actually moved from Facebook to school, but I'll go live into the community and kick off the event. It really hasn't been an issue. And what I love about it, it gives me the opportunity to really promote the speakers. Like I do a lot of promotion for our experts. So whether it's like, having them on the podcast and kind of feature them there. And some of the experts we have in our membership, we have a Craft and Create Club membership too. So, we have experts that come in there and do workshops there. So I do a lot of promotion of the experts and the artists that we have.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. What would you say to people then who feel like they shouldn't host a summit because they're not like this big deal in the space?
I don't think people care. Like even I think by you actually hosting the summit, they're going to see you as the leader. That's just the fact. They're going to relate you to that event, and they're going to position you as the expert, whether you feel like you're the expert or not.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for being proof of that. Like there is no better proof than you out here hosting these incredible events over and over in niches that you're not involved in. Like, yeah, they look fun and amazing. It's not like you have time for all of them, but they are still incredible. It's still building a successful business. And yeah, like you said, people really they don't care. They don't care how long you've been in business. They just want to learn whatever you said they're going to learn at the summit. So thank you for that. Okay, I want to shift a little bit and talk about your $1 million hobby school experiment that you're doing on Substack. It sounds like that's kind of one of your bigger focuses right now. I guess tell us about that. I'll just leave it pretty open ended.
Yeah, so I have been asked by many people to kind of go behind the scenes in terms of what I've been doing with Hobby School and, basically sell it, go behind. You've seen those behind the scenes experiments.
Mm-hmm.
And I had always been kind of hesitant to do that, not because I didn't want people to see behind the scenes. I was worried about how much time it was going to take me to actually, document all of this and get the information out to people in a way that would be beneficial to them. I kind of got talked into this, honestly. If I'm being completely honest, I got talked into this by the people in my peer mastermind. I'm in this peer mastermind. So I got talked into this. And so I started looking at, ways that I could actually present this experiment. And I kind of ran across Substack. I'd been wanting to kind of test it out because I do the newsletter Profit Club. And in there, people ask me all the time about Substack. Should I use it? What's it like? Blah, blah, blah. So I was like looking at the platform. I'm like, okay, this looks like it'd be a really good place for me to kind of document this experiment. And this experiment is something that I've kind of had on my mind for a while. When I first started Hobby School, going back to the story that we talked about in the beginning, that domain name purchase, it was always my intent to set up this business to eventually sell it. Mm-hmm. Now, at that point in time, I didn't know exactly when or what or any of that. And I'm still a little fuzzy on it, if we're being completely honest here. But I decided to kind of put a stake in the ground and, say, this is my goal. I want to do it by the end of 2027. And it was almost just for me to do that because it makes me think differently. It makes me take risk that I would not normally take. So it's a little bit, I'm trying to push myself to get to that, to get to that point. And I feel like, okay, if I can put a stake in the ground and I can document it publicly, it's going to force me to really, get my butt in gear and do what I need to do to reach my goals there.
Yeah. Could you give us an example of like one of the things you've done on this journey to get you one step closer to that? I'm just curious. We'll definitely link to the Substack as well.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like what we're doing with the summits, like we have a really, really good system there. And I'm not saying that there's not room to improve because I most definitely think there is. I mean, there's always things you can be doing with your marketing and tweaking and your funnels and everything there. So I feel like that is solid. I feel like the events we have planned for 2026 are solid. There's definitely some other kind of revenue opportunities that I need to be looking at, like with sponsorships. I haven't done a lot with sponsorships in the past. I feel like they were a lot of work for not a lot of money is what my experience was. So I'm looking at other ways to, explore sponsorships that won't take up my time because I just don't have any time there. And I talked about those verticals and those niches. And we're also doing some kind of back end type systems with, very official help desk support, trouble ticketing system, which I haven't had in the past, but the last summit almost killed me. And I'm like, okay, that's not happening again. First of all, I've learned something about me. I'm not a good customer support person. I started answering people in a very, I can't believe you're asking me this type question. So we're like, okay, that's not working. I can't be the customer support person. That's getting outsourced. So there's things like that we're doing, but some of it's too related to like the marketing systems. Like, how do you find those corporate HR people that want to, buy the seat? So setting up the systems with LinkedIn and, all of that is going to take some time. But yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting to hear. I wouldn't have, my brain is like, I don't think about this stuff, right? So I wouldn't even thought of like the LinkedIn positioning and a lot of what you're talking about here. So if someone's listening and they're thinking, I want to build something I can eventually sell too. What would you tell them to consider from day one that you think someone might miss?
Yeah. I can tell you I've made a lot of mistakes here, and I will have to spend some time over the next year kind of working on some of this. But I think, setting up kind of the financial system so that it's separate is a really good start. Making sure like your PayPal, Stripe, Thrivecart, email system, all of that is kind of separate from any other business that you have. That'll make it a lot easier and cleaner when you go to sell. So, kind of thinking through all of that. The other thing that I have been fairly deliberate with, I will say I probably have done, if I can pat myself on the back of this, I've done a pretty good job here, is making sure or getting people kind of behind the scenes to run the business for you. So I don't spend a lot of time in, kind of that day to day summit stuff with Hobby School. I really don't. And when it comes down to some of the marketing stuff, like I'll do the emails, I'll, go through and look at the sales pages and the funnels and stuff, but I'm not doing a lot of that other stuff. I try to focus my efforts to be more strategic, kind of forward thinking. What other, revenue streams can we do? What do I need to set up to make those happen? But I don't get into all the day-to-day type stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that would be so important. And then especially like when you do sell it, if you were in the day to day, you'd be like, what do I do with my life now? Instead, you'll just be able to switch your strategy focus to whatever you want to focus on next, or not, I suppose. So I love that. I think that's so interesting to think about, and something that I think like summits are a powerful thing to be able to sell. So whether you're someone listening who is interested in selling a whole business or a part of your business, like a course or a summit, it's something you can think about. And I actually have an episode from a couple years back after I sold a summit. I'm pretty sure I had on the person I sold it to, and we were talking about it. I literally can't remember, but we will link to that in the show notes because like summits are amazing on their own, but they are also these sellable assets, especially when you can think about it that way and plan for that with a little bit of foresight. So thank you so much for coming on, Destini. This was such an interesting episode with like an angle. I've never heard anyone talk about an angle like this before. So thank you so much. Where can people go to learn more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, I mean, my main website, destinicopp.com, go there. I have the links there to get on my Creators MBA newsletter. That's the best place to learn about all of this. And this was so much fun, Krista. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for tuning in, everybody. For show notes and resources mentioned, including a link to Destini's Substack as well, just go ahead to the link in the episode description wherever you're listening. That will get you over to our show notes with all of that goodness. For now, go out and take action to plan, strategize, and launch your high converting virtual summit.